The dangers of big pharma, sisters at war, a surprising message from an unlikely source. This is the ending of Netflix's new horror series Resident Evil Explained. Since the dawn of the dead, the zombie apocalypse has been used by artists across a variety of mediums to act as a cautionary tale regarding the dangers of an era's current path. While George Romero's movie exposed the willful ignorance of the Reagan era, Capcom's Resident Evil, released in 1996, spoke to a society grappling with the consequences of the greed is good 80s and an increasing awareness of the not always benevolent nature of big pharma. Elizabeth Wurtzel's Prozac Nation had come out just 2 years prior, and a newly public company called America Online had just leapt, in the course of a year, from 1 million to 5 million members. The disillusionment of the 60s and 70s had returned, but in the form of a general malaise and cynicism, aided by a boom in technology that was evolving rapidly. The malevolent entity at the center of Resident Evil, the Umbrella Corporation, brilliantly encapsulated the era's dependence on and wariness of profit-hungry corporations, while the game's various monsters made tangible the worst-case scenario fears of an increasingly skeptical generation. While the game evolved with each of its numerous iterations and spin-offs, this thematic core remained the same. And while the Resident Evil films get a lot wrong about the games and have an otherwise convoluted and confusing storyline, even they've been unwavering in keeping up this subtext, at least a little bit. Netflix's reimagining of the now well-worn zombie yarn does this as well, but with one very important tweak. You don't need to sift through the chaotic timeline of the Resident Evil films to appreciate Netflix's new series. The two films that feel like the most predominant influences on series creator Andrew Dobbs' take have nothing whatsoever to do with the IP, or for that matter with zombies, though they're no less horrifying for it. The revelations provided in 2021's A Crime of the Century, a two-part documentary detailing Purdue Pharma's role in the opioid epidemic, and 2020's The Social Dilemma, an expose on surveillance capitalism and for-profit behavior modification, both loom large over the 8-episode series. Dobbs' series, and its ending in particular, directly reference the realities laid out in these films. Though the antagonist in the Resident Evil games has always been a greedy corporate machine invested in global domination, it's mostly maintained a kind of faceless vagueness that allowed it to serve more as a template than a direct commentary. Netflix's Resident Evil, on the other hand, imbues its central villain with a clear and unnervingly recognizable specificity. Resident Evil is not a portrait of a dystopian future, but a reflection on an increasingly dystopian present. The notorious T-virus still kicks off the zombie apocalypse, but Umbrella's path to power and domination has evolved along with our world. Forget unleashing unkillable mutants on other countries. In 2022, the ability to control the population via medications and devices upon which its people are wholly dependent is a much more efficient, unstoppable weapon. In The Social Dilemma, big tech turncoat Tristan Harris explains the results of pervasive tech. 2 billion people, he says, will have thoughts that they didn't intend to have because of a designer at Google. This is happening to each and every one of us every time we reach for our smartphones. And it's echoed directly by Paola Nunez's Evelyn Marcus, who wants to use the company's new T-virus-laced antidepressant Joy to take this real-world mind control to a whole new level.
Google, Zuckerberg, they deliver eyeballs. Umbrella will deliver minds.
Despite Wesker insisting that the T-virus element in Joy is still too unstable to bring the drug to market, Evelyn demands that he make it happen within the next 6 months so that she might successfully bring the flailing company back to life. At one point, a reporter explains Umbrella's past and present as a company besieged by legal scandal and falling stock prices is now trying to reinvent itself with a major push into direct-to-consumer drugs. The allusion to both Purdue and Insys Therapeutics, the now bankrupt company responsible for fentanyl, is both clear and cutting. Equally clear in their commentary are the opioid withdrawal mirroring side effects of Joy and the zombifying effect that high doses of the drug elicit.
So we know what goes on the warning label.
The line from Evelyn is a biting reference to Big Pharma consistently blaming the user of a drug while ignoring their own irresponsible marketing of that drug is blindly apparent. The fact that Umbrella's latest weapon is manipulation and control through dependency rather than monstrous brute force marks a major turning point for the narrative. But in addition to this fresh twist on the story, there's an important thematic tie-in to the series' source material. Netflix's Resident Evil also highlights the gaslighting tactics used by some of today's tech and pharma giants. It's for your own good, Umbrella insists, as do our real-world ads, apps, and pharmaceutical companies. Combine this sales tactic with the initially good intentions that spark so many advances in science and tech, and you create a dynamic wherein both seller and buyer are locked in a one-way road to hell. This idea is most thoroughly shown in the last 2 episodes of Resident Evil, when we learn that for all her flippant disregard of Joy users and for all her power-hungry ambition, Evelyn might genuinely believe that her creation could change the world, as she says several times, for the better. There's more than a few shades of the tragic tale of Theranos and Evelyn's repeated use of that phrase. But in having the Umbrella CEO allow her ambition to overtake her regard for human life and autonomy, Resident Evil is once again presenting us with a cautionary tale. In the penultimate episode, we learn that Evelyn has been drugging her wife with joy in order to keep her compliant. This marks the point of no return for the wife and mother, who will later continue her mission despite the loss of her son. In contrast to Evelyn, the Wesker of Netflix's Resident Evil never loses his humanity, differing wildly from the one-dimensional villain of the games and movies. The hardworking dad with whom we're presented for the majority of the series is not, we learn in the end, the actual Albert Wesker. When the original Wesker needed a team of scientists to help him advance the virus, he created a handful of Wesker clones. Only 2 of these clones survive, Bert, who Evelyn keeps locked up, and Albert, the dad we believe is Wesker for most of the show. But they have serious health problems as a result of aging instantaneously. In order to stay alive, Albert creates his 2 daughters, Billie and Jade, and uses their blood to stave off his symptoms. It's a simultaneously nasty and nuanced kind of parental need. Albert does love his daughters, as evidenced by his willingness to do anything to protect them. Here again, the series is highlighting the not-so-straightforward nature of our push-pull relationship with scientific progress. Yes, Wesker is using the girls, but he has no choice in the matter if he wants to live. He does, however, have a choice as to whether or not he'll sacrifice himself for her. This gap in what he can and can't control, his human weakness versus his human strengths, mirrors society's complicated need for pharmaceutical breakthroughs. In the end, we learn that adult Billie has joined Umbrella, eventually finding a way to control even Evelyn. Jade has gone in a different direction, working for a rebel university and studying the behavior of the zombies that now encompass the planet. Sister is pitted against sister as it's revealed that Billie, like her clone dad before her, needs Jade's blood in order to survive. In one of the most important final scenes of the series, we witness Billie turning to Evelyn for help.
If I am sick, can you help me?
It's not hard to see this cause of the sickness, owner of the cure dynamic, and the call for companies like Facebook to fix the monster they created. Unfortunately, as data scientist Kathy O'Neill points out in The Social Dilemma, this is a misguided ask.
We are allowing the technologists to frame this as a problem that they're equipped to solve. That's a lie.
Evelyn and Umbrella may be able to keep Billie alive, but they do so at the cost of her very humanity. In the end, Billie's decision to rely on the corporation leads to her willingness to shoot her sister in the stomach and kidnap her niece to mine for blood. As Albert struggles to reject Evelyn's control in the build-up to the outbreak, she reminds him that willpower has nothing to do with his current situation. You need your medicine, she says.
About an hour, maybe less. The pain will become unbearable and you'll give in.
Later, as he lies dying on the floor, begging his daughters for forgiveness, Evelyn leans over him and places a syringe of Jade's blood in his hand. It's a heartbreaking scene and one that directly reflects the dynamics between an addict, their family, and their supplier. Despite the gutting symbolism of Albert's final moments before he sacrifices himself to free his daughters, the series eventually leaves us with some semblance of hope. When adult Jade unleashes a mountain-sized mutated crocodile on Umbrella's base camp, it's not simply a reptilian display of gamer fan service. The confrontation of past and future, of nature and technology, and of history and progress are all brought to the foreground in the series' final moments. The fact that Umbrella's technology is able to tear at the body of a creature that predates our existence is of obvious symbolic importance. What's more, Jade aligning herself with the university, aka the preserver of the past, is meant to stand in direct contrast to her sister's alignment with Umbrella. In their final exchange, Billie literally says,
I'm the future.
The series stops short of implying that the past is wholly superior. Yes, this future is heartless, bleak, infected, and driven by a manufactured dependence on a malevolent corporation. Yes, we got here by allowing our complex need for progress to make us reliant on such a corporation. But this doesn't mean science and progress are, in and of themselves, a bad thing. The crocodile doesn't attack Jade's daughter, and though we've yet to learn why, it's implied that Jade used some form of science or technology to protect her offspring. It's a series finale that leaves us with more questions than answers. We don't know if Jade survives. We don't know if Billie will harm her own niece, though it certainly looks that way. We don't know what's special about Jade's daughter, and we don't know much about Billie's plans for Umbrella. We also don't know what will become of Evelyn, the university, or the world's remaining humans. Thematically speaking, however, the series finale ends on a fairly conclusive note, one that's simultaneously chilling and motivating. By setting the onset to the apocalypse in our current year, and by focusing on 2 very real, very powerful yet complicated threats to our society, Resident Evil gives us the most terrifying apocalypse of the entire IP. This is happening now, it says. We carry this threat, this loss of independence through dependence, around in our pockets. charge it and feed off of it, even as it feeds off us, even as it feeds more specifically off our brains. Nevertheless, beneath the doom and gloom of the series finale, there's some hope to be gleaned from Bert's guileless speech to a young and still mostly human Billie.
No one's really okay. We're all just doing our best. In a world where it's way too easy to do your worst.
In the end, this most recent installment of Resident Evil simply reminds us that while corporations aren't people, people still are, at least for now. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies and TV shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.